The air split with a screech of tires, so shrill it yanked me from the drowsy warmth of an ordinary afternoon. I whipped around, heart slamming against my ribs, expecting a collision, but instead saw a glossy black SUV jerk to a stop just feet from where I stood with my grandmother in the parking lot of Grayson's Market. The driver's window slid down, and a woman's voice sharp as broken glass cut through the humid air. "Move it. This isn't your personal runway." My grandmother, Lillian Brooks, 78 and steady as an oak despite her cane, didn't flinch. She turned slowly, her silver hair catching the sunlight, and fixed the driver with a look that could silence a storm. I felt the moment shift, like the ground tilting before a quake, and knew this wasn't going to end quietly. It was meant to be a simple errand, a rare day off for me, Nora, a 28-year-old copywriter drowning in deadlines. Lillian had insisted on tagging along, not because she needed help scoff at the suggestion, but because she loved the small rituals, picking out crisp apples, debating soup brands, sneaking me a $10 bill for a latte like I was still 16. She'd been my rock through my chaotic teens when my parents were more absents than presents, and these outings were our way of we VYing time together. Lillian moved slower now, her knees creaking, but her presence carried weight, quiet, unyielding, the kind that made people pause without knowing why. We just left the store, my arms full of grocery bags, the asphalt radiating heat like a skillet. I offered to grab the car, but Lillian waved me off. "I'm not an invalid, Nora," she said, her voice dry as a desert breeze. "My legs just like to negotiate." So we walked, her cane tapping a deliberate beat, aiming for the far corner of the lot where we'd parked. Lillian never took the close spots, even though her doctor had offered a handicap placard years ago. "Those are for folks who really need them," she'd say in a story. Halfway across, the SUV roared up behind us, its horn blasting like a gunshot. I turned, startled, expecting a distracted driver, but the woman inside wasn't distracted. She was Lee VYD. Her name, we'd later learn, was Monica Wells, though in that moment, she was just a stranger with a tight jaw and a designer purse slung over her shoulder. Dark hair pulled into a severe ponytail, oversized sunglasses perched like a crown. She leaned out her window, her voice dripping venom. "Hurry up, lady. Some of us have lives." My pulse spiked, but before I could snap back, Lillian paused, turned fully to face her, and said, calm as still water, "I'm MOVYing as fast as I can, dear. Patience is free." That should have ended it. Anyone with a scrap of decency would have waited, maybe grumbled, and driven on. But Monica wasn't built that way. The SUV lurched forward, swerved VYing into the next lane with a squeal, and before I could blink, she was out, slamming her door so hard it echoed. She stormed toward us, heels stabbing the pavement, her face twisted with a rage that felt too big for the moment. "You think you own this lot?" she shouted, pointing at Lillian. "Old people like you, dragging along, wasting everyone's Timmy, go home if you can't keep up." I stepped in front of Lillian, my hands tightening around the bags. "Back off," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "We're just getting to our car." But Monica's eyes were locked on Lillian, who stood there, cane planted, unshaken. Monica's voice dropped to a hiss. "You're a hazard." And then, before I could react, her hand flashed out, slapping Lillian's cheek with a crack that froze time. The sound burned into my brain, unnatural, wrong, a violation that made my stomach lurch. I dropped the bags, cans, and oranges spilling across the pavement and lunged toward Monica, but Lillian's hand shot up, stopping me. She hadn't fallen. She stood tall, her cheek reddening, but her posture unbroken, like a lighthouse weathering a gale. Monica stepped back, her eyes flickering with something shock, maybe, but not regret. I scrambled for my phone, hands shaking as I dialed 911. "You just hit my grandmother," I yelled, loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. "I'm calling the cops." Monica laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "Go ahead, honey. I'll say she swung first. Who are they going to believe? You and some old hag or me?" She crossed her arms, smug, like she'd played this game before. "She shouldn't be out here anyway. People like her belong in homes, not slowing down the world." I was ready to scream, to do something reckless, but Lillian was calm, too calm. She reached into her purse with deliberate slowness, pulled out a slim leather wallet, and flipped it open to reveal a badge that gleamed like justice itself. "Retired Detective Sergeant Lillian Brooks," she said, her voice low and steady, each word a stone dropped into still water. 30 years, 5th Precinct. You just committed felony assault on a senior citizen in broad daylight, with witnesses. You think you're walking away?" Monica's face went pale, her mouth working soundlessly. "That's fake," she stammered, but her voice cracked, the bravado crumbling. Lillian didn't blink. She turned to a store employee hovering nearby, clutching a cart like a lifeline. "Son, get your manager. Tell them to call the precinct and say Sergeant Brooks needs an officer." The kid nodded, bolting for the store. A crowd had formed shoppers, a delivery guy, a teen with a phone already filming. Monica's eyes darted around, realizing she was trapped in a spotlight she couldn't dodge. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, backing toward her SUV. "I don't have time for this nonsense." But Lillian's voice cut through, sharp and final. "You'll learn today, dear. Actions have weight." Monica froze, speechless for once. The parking lot pulsed with tension, thick enough to choke on. Monica lingered by her car, her fingers twitching like she was weighing a run for it. I stood beside Lillian, my heart still racing, but my anger giving way to awe. My grandmother, who taught me how to stand up to bullies and make perfect pie crust, was dismantling this woman without raising her voice. The manager, a lanky guy named Tom with a nervous tic, rushed out with 2 employees. "Ma'am," he said to Lillian, "we've called the police. Cameras caught everything. I saw it myself. We'll give them the footage." Monica scoffed, but it was hollow. "You're all insane," she muttered, her confidence unraveling. Lillian adjusted her cane, her gaze never vying Monica's face. "You can lie all you want," she said. "But you hit me. On camera. With witnesses. You're out of moves." Sirens broke the standoff. Faint, then louder, a steady hum of authority. 2 squad cars rolled in, lights flashing but silent, parking at the aisle's edge. The first officer out was young, wiry, with a cautious stride. The second was older, stocky, and his face lit up when he saw Lillian. "Sergeant Brooks," he said, half smiling. "Didn't expect you to be the one calling this in." "Officer Reyes," Lillian replied, nodding. "Didn't expect to be here like this myself." She gestured to Monica, who was leaning against her SUV, shrinking under scrutiny. "She assaulted me. Unprovoked. I want charges filed." Reyes's expression hardened as he turned to Monica. "Ma'am, stay put." Monica's voice rose, frantic. "She's lying. She provoked, threatened me." But Reyes held up a hand. "We'll see what the footage says." Tom led him to the store to re-VYEW the tapes, while the younger officer stayed, asking Lillian if she needed a medic. She waved it off. "Just a bruise," she said. "Nothing a little ice won't fix." I stood there, still reeling, the slap replaying in my mind. How could someone look at Lillian, her quiet strength, her grace, and think they could hurt her and walk away? The crowd grew, phones out, whispers spreading. A woman in yoga gear shook her head, muttering, "Unbelievable." The teen with the phone grinned, calling to Monica, "All on VY Deo, lady. You're toast." Monica's face twitched, her eyes scanning the crowd, the officers, Lillian. She was cornered. Reyes returned, his face grim. "Footage is clear," he told his partner. "She struck Sergeant Brooks, no provocation. Witnesses back it up." He turned to Monica, cuffs out. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for aggravated battery on a senior citizen." Monica's composure shattered. "This is outrageous," she shrieked, pulling back as Reyes approached. "She's scamming you. I'm the VY Tim." But the officers didn't waver. They cuffed her, read her rights, and led her to the squad car. She shouted about lawsuits and conspiracies. The crowd watched, some filming, others silent. As Monica was loaded into the car, I looked at Lillian. She wasn't gloating, just watching, her face calm, like she'd seen this scene 1,000 times. "You okay?" I asked softly. She smiled faintly. "Fine, nora. Let's get these groceries home." I'm thinking peach cobbler tonight. I laughed, the tension cracking. That was Lillian unshaken, already planning dessert. The drive home was quiet, the kind of silence that holds more than it says. Lillian pressed a bag of frozen peas Tom's parting gift to her cheek. I kept glancing at her, expecting anger or hurt, but she just looked out the window, lips twitching like she was amused. She was processing it, I could tell, not as a VY Tim, but as the cop she'd been for 30 years, knowing she'd already won. At her bungalow, all blooming roses and creaky floorboards, she sank into her armchair with a sigh. I offered to stay, to call my dad, but she waved me off. "You worry too much," she said, eyes warm. "I'm not the one in handcuffs." She was right. Monica had no idea what she'd triggered, but Lillian did. She'd built cases, faced liars, and knew how to let truth do the work. I couldn't let it go so easily. My mind kept circling the slap, Monica's smugness. What if there'd been no cameras? What if she'd lied in one? The thought made my stomach twist. I sat across from Lillian, picking at my nails, and asked, "Weren't you scared? That she'd lie and they'd believe her?" Lillian set her tea down, her gaze steady. "People lie, Nora. Always will. But you make your truth louder with EVY Denke, witnesses, and keeping your head when they lose theirs. That's what breaks them. They expect you to fold. When you don't, they're done." She adjusted the peas. We had cameras, bystanders, and her own bad choices. She never had a shot. Her words hit deep, a lesson from a lifetime of holding ground. I envy Ed that calm, that ability to stand in chaos and not let it touch her core. Later, her landline rang her real phone, she called it. She answered with her cop voice, "Sergeant Brooks, retired." It was Reyes, updating her. Monica had been booked, charges likely including battery and obstruction after she'd tried to fake a heart attack at the station. Lillian nodded, thanked him, and hung up. "What did he say?" I asked. "She's digging her hole deeper," Lillian said, cutting cobbler. "Screamed the whole way, claimed I orchestrated it. They had to restrain her." She shook her head, almost pitying. "Some folks don't know when to quit." I laughed, picturing Monica unraveling while Lillian sat here, cool as ever. "Jail time?" I asked. "Maybe," Lillian said. "First-timers sometimes get probation, but with the VY Deo, she'll carry a record. That sticks." Then I remember Monica had mentioned kids, a job. My stomach sank. She said something about working with kids. Lillian's eyes darkened. Then this matters more. Someone who'd hit a stranger over a parking spot shouldn't be near children. That anger doesn't stay put. We sat with that, her cat Muffin, a lazy tabby sprawled in her lap. Outside, the world hummed on, kids shouting, the dog barking. But I felt changed, like I'd seen the world's cruelty and its justice collide. Lillian had shown me strength isn't always loud sometimes. It's a slow walk and a steady voice, refusing to bend. Morning came, calm and surreal. I'd slept on her couch, too wired to drive, and woke to coffee and bacon. Lillian was up, bruise fading, flipping pancakes like nothing had happened. "Stop hovering," she teased, catching me staring. I'm not glass, but I stayed close, needing her steadiness. Her phone buzzed mid-meal. She answered on speaker Reyes again. "Her bail hearings today," he said. "She's making it worse," yelled at staff, claimed you set her up. Also, one of the VY Deos caught her saying something ugly racial stuff. DA's looking at a hate crime angle. That hit hard. Lillian's face tightened, not shocked but weary, like she'd hoped it was just rage, not something darker. "Thank you, officer," she said, hanging up. "Some people," she murmured, "carry more venom than you see." We walked after breakfast, just to the corner. I protested news vans were sniffing around, but she gave me the look. Neighbors waved, some shouting support. The TikTok VY Deo, Karen slaps grandma, regrets it, was VY Ral, memes flooding our town's Facebook group. Lillian ignored it, focused on her steps, but I felt the shift. She was a symbol now, like it or not. By afternoon, a news station called. Monica's neighbor had spilled. She ran a daycare, and parents were pulling kids out. Her husband had bailed her out, but left home. Lillian listened, then said, "Kids deserve better." I don't care about her drama, I care about who she could have hurt. That was Lillian, justice over vengeance. That night, we watched old detective shows, Lillian mocking their cliches while Muffin purred. I didn't want this, she said during a break, voice soft. But the world needs reminding. You don't get to hurt people because they're in your way. I nodded, carrying her words like a shield. The case moved fast. Video, witnesses, and Monica's antics made it airtight. The DA pushed aggravated battery, citing her BHA VUI or in the racial remarks. Lillian testified at the courthouse, precise and unflinching, like she was back on the job. The prosecutor, awed, whispered to me, "She's incredible." Sentencing day, we went out for spite but closure. The courtroom buzzed reporters, locals, online fans. Monica looked hollow, her defiance gone. She mumbled an apology, blaming stress, but it fell flat. The judge sentenced her to 90 days in jail, 2 years probation, and anger management, her record scarred. It wasn't just punishment, it was a line drawn. Outside, Lillian breathed deep. "It's done," she said. "Now I can tend my roses in peace." The world didn't let her fade and tire limes lingered. A kid sent a super granny. Drawing she hung proudly, but she went back to her life, unbroken. For me, it was a lesson. Strength isn't always a shout. Sometimes it's a woman with a cane, walking slow, demanding respect, and getting it one unyielding step at a time. Over tea a week later, she raised her mug. "To slow walks and hard truths," she said, winking. I laughed, knowing I'd carry that forever. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.